Good morning, everybody.
And
Good
prominent.
morning.
Yep.
I'm Barbara Thompson. I'm the Rector's Warden at St. Martin's, in case you don't know. I want to welcome you all to the Rector's 10th anniversary Zoom address and conversation. I'd like to start out and say a prayer this morning of Thanksgiving. Please join me as we thank Jarrett for 10 years as our Rector at St. Martin's. May you continue to lead us in our Christianity and spirituality, and may God bless him as he embarks on his next 10 to 20 years and beyond. I'd like to thank Jarrett and this morning's speakers, in particular at the 8 and 10:30 services. They spoke so beautifully on how he personally led us in our mission and values here at St. Martin's. Specifically, they included Pam Hill, our Rector's Warden Emeritus, Barbara Dundon, Alan Window, Gary Glazer, Nikki Wood. If any of you missed it, they're available on YouTube and Facebook. So please take a look at these words because they spoke so beautifully from the heart. I think you'd like to hear, and I think that perhaps it will give you some thought too about what Jarrett's meant to you over the past 10 years. Meanwhile, as a thank you, I'd also like to present something to Jarrett. It's a gift that's being handcrafted. And we put this together for his 10 years of service. And what you see, bless you, is a 28-inch large black cross on ash wood. It's a wall crucifix that we're having made for Jarrett. Unfortunately, it's still in its virtual form, but we look forward to receiving it soon and being together as we present it to you in person one of these days, Jarrett. And we're very grateful for you, and we just want to show our appreciation.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I can stop sharing now, but I'll show you the gift again another time.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So nice of you. Wow, that's really amazing. What a gift. Well, hello, St. Martin's. I am, of course, would love to be with you in person today. Like I'd love to be with you in person every day. And I'd love to be with you in person on Sundays, especially. But here we are. We're doing our best with the technology at hand. At the end of the 10:30 service, I came up with a metaphor that I kind of liked. How to explain 10 years at St. Martin's. Well, if you didn't hear it, I'll do it again. If you've ever had a nice drink from the garden hose, remember when you were a kid and you're running around all hot and sweaty on a summer day and how good it was to find the garden hose that your parents left out and because they didn't want you back in the house. And you took a big slurp off the water coming out of the hose, but one of your friends, in my case, my friend Dan, would crank the spigot all the way up and splash, you get a face full of water. That's what St. Martin's is like for me. It's like drinking out of a gushing fire hose. And that's a great thing. That's how spirit-filled this community is. That's how full of gifts it is. That's how wonderful it is. That's how baptismal it is. There's a baptismal image in there, isn't there? So I just feel so blessed to be immersed in God with you. It meant everything to me to be here and to grow with you, to evolve with you, to be in this mission together. And that's kind of where I want to start. My address has pretty basic parts. One is we're going to start with gratitude because that's always the place to start. Gratitude and gifts. We're going to move on to gifts, the many gifts of this parish, that is. Then we're going to review a little bit about why you took the risk of calling me in the first place. And then we're going to look ahead. I think Barbara Dunzan's on here. She was, and so is Pam Hill. They were both on my search committee, and Michael Martin Mills. So they can always jump in and clarify if I get something a little wrong. Please continue to mute as you enter. So here's my primary source of heartfelt gratitude in my life in St. Martin's. So I was raised in a household where it was very clear that if I presented my true self, if I showed up as my genuine self, I would suffer rejection. And that happened over and over again. It wasn't a one-time message. It was a constant drumbeat, right? If the sensitive kid who's full of faith puts his heart out there, it's going to get stepped on. So what one learns to do in that household is hide or pretend to be something you're not. So I'm a master at that, actually. I was well trained. But here's the gift of St. Martin's. I believe I've been able to show myself here in my strengths and my weaknesses, which are significant, and still be in community with you, and still be accepted and not rejected by you. That has been a tremendous gift to me, because my presumption is rejection. The thing I fear and assume is going to happen, that if I show up with my gifts and weaknesses, the thing that's got to go is me. Like Jonah getting thrown out of the boat, right? So I just want you to hear what your faithfulness and kindness and commitment has meant to me. I want you to receive that and think about also how that's a gift to so many people who come here. If we have the compassion and the faithfulness and the endurance and humility and the kindness and the calm to accept people as they are and to stick with them through their ups and their downs, through their betters and their worses and their richers and their poorers, we are doing God's work. And that's been my primary experience of St. Martin's, as a place where God is working, where God does what God does, brings life out of death, where God brings healing out of suffering, where God brings community out of loneliness, where God feeds us with God's spiritual food, and where we were hungry, we are now fed. And if someone asks me why I think St. Martin's is so special this way, it's very simple. It's the Paschal Mystery. The Paschal Mystery got taught here really well. And that was when Frank Griswold was here. And this place took it to heart. The Paschal mystery, it's also a ministry. The Paschal mystery of God dying and rising again in Jesus Christ. The death and resurrection of Jesus Christ is at the core of this place. And because of that, we are actually a courageous community. We're a community that rises to the occasion, that faces into the challenges, that has a courageous heart and a faithfulness that really is infectious and really is rare. In a world where we really need hope, we can bring hope because we believe that death is part of life and it leads to new life in Christ. I think under Bob Tate, the baptismal life of the Christian got deeply taught, and that has undergirded the life of this parish very well. I have never served a place that was more baptismal in orientation and took its baptismal vows so super seriously. We have needed those to endure during challenging times. So I really, at core, believe that St. Martin's is a richly spiritually gifted community. And I've always responded to the gifts in the place. I've always responded to the gifts that are here. And so I'm going to tell you about your gifts. So this is my job as a minister, to reflect back what's good about you. And I really do fundamentally believe that we are full of goodness, and God is on the side of our goodness. And even our struggles and our failings are just distortions of goodness, right? We're trying to live out our genuine goodness, but it just got twisted up a little bit to help us survive. So we're grounded in the Paschal ministry. We have a loving and accepting spirit that is part of God. here are the gifts that I see at St. Martin's. And by the way, I brought my tissues because there's gonna be crying. Yeah, try being the kid who grew up the boy who cried. That's no fun at all, let me tell you. So here are the gifts as I see them. You are, I'll say you are, because you are St. Martin's, you are a deeply faithful, prayerful, and worshipful community. I love the depth of prayerfulness and gospel-centered concern in this place. It's great. It's deep. It's there. And it's so wonderful to be in such a prayerful place, such a place that really centers in on God and not the extraneous stuff. This is also an incredibly caring community. Your peer-to-peer caring is something I noticed immediately. The way you really support each other, the way you turn to each other, the way you show love to each other, the way you go out of your way to remember each other and make sure no one gets forgotten. That's huge. If the church doesn't have that, what are we? You know, we have that in formal ways like our brilliant Stephen ministry and Wellspring ministry. And I think we have that very strongly in the pastoral care orientation of your clergy. I think you know that our door is always open and that we are always there for you. And we have really worked hard at that in this last 10 years to do pastoral visiting, relational ministry. But all that is really possible because of this peer-to-peer caring in the pews. So let me lift up that and celebrate that along with the deep faithfulness. And here's the third thing that's really rare and needs to be celebrated. You are a community that likes a challenge. You actually are attracted to challenge. The challenges that come with being a disciple of Jesus. You guys look at the hard issues head on. Recently, our properties committee under David Harrower's leadership, before Carol took over, adopted the motto, look without fear. Because, you know, it's really hairy if you start looking at these buildings too closely. But I think that goes for the whole parish. We are a look without fear parish. We are learning together to face into the challenge that comes with the gospel, right? You know, this encounter, this life with Jesus is one that says, I love you just the way you are, and I love you so much, I'm not going to leave you that way, right? So we come to Jesus for the loving compassion, and we stay for the challenge, because that challenge grows us up and opens us up and makes our hearts bigger. So I'm really excited about how that's happening at St. Martin's in so many ways, how we've adopted, you know, a public stance for our prophetic message. We've adopted a public stance for our justice message, our racial justice message, and that has not been without a cost. But I think it's been faithful. So we're a very welcoming place, but we're a place with a really nice identity too, a really strong sense of who we are, and strong relationships that help us take on the challenging stuff, while, in the words of Eugenie Deek, showing up with love, which is going to be my all-time favorite phrase at this place, show up with love. We're also a community, next gift, there's a lot of gifts here, so sit back. You are a community with a strong self-awareness of what we're all about. It came out when we did our values exercise and named our aspirational values. It comes out when I hear our mission get repeated back to me, which is awesome and fun. We also have a real evolving pattern of being intentional about our life together, how we want to be for each other at St. Martin's, right? How we want to show up for each other with love and concern and gentleness, how we want to receive each other when we disagree, when we're in tension with each other. And one of the things that I've learned that I'm actually kind of proud of in my time at St. Martin's is I have an ability personally to disagree and be in tension and love at the same time. I can do pastoral care. I can love you and listen, even if we're kind of feeling polarized with each other. And I'm really proud of that. That's huge for community. And you heard a little bit that when Alan Windle spoke this morning about a time when he and I talked when we disagreed. And the ability to show respect, the ability to listen, the ability to relate and take people in their integrity is a huge part of the intentionality that makes for a faithful community. Here's some more stuff. Another peer-to-peer, lay minister to lay minister gift in this community is the way you teach each other. You care for each other. You also do most of your adult ed teaching layperson to layperson. I've never been part of a community with this much talent and gift for teaching each other. You know, Barbara Ballinger and I, oftentimes we're coaches on the bench. We're just coaches on the bench helping you guys do your gifts, right? So you do the biblical studies, you do the Wellspring, you do the classes, you lead forum. We're just coaches. And that's an amazing gift. How so much adult formation happens between y'all without me having to really jump in. It's not I don't have a really rabbinical role here, guys. You guys are the rabbis. And going with that is also the excellent lay leadership of this church. This church has a strong commitment, ingrained commitment to lay leadership. So many committees, so many ministries are run by the lay people. Once again, ordained leadership, we're here as coaches. We're here to give structure, ask tough questions, give direction. But thank God I'm not running the finance committee, right? We've got talented people who do that. Properties, adult formation, all these things are led by this powerful lay ministry here at St. Martin. So I cannot affirm that enough. In fact, one of the things I always say, and you probably heard me say it, is there is not a successful ministry at St. Martin's that isn't lay-led. If there is not talented lay leadership, there is usually not a strong ministry, right? So all the staff know that we don't start stuff until we identify a strong lay leader. Take supper, right? You know, that's Deborah Roberts and me saying yes to Deborah Roberts. And look at what it's become. It's this brilliant ministry here at St. Martin's that who could have imagined that happening? And think about the Fridays with Jane Good in the parking lot, and now with Juntos in the parking lot. And Deborah Roberts is now in the parking lot. You know, that was just saying yes. And lay ministry and your networks and your relationships and your vision makes it happen. So I really am proud that we've been permeable and receptive to all that wonderful lay initiative, lay competence that, you know, once you start saying yes, it just flowers. You know, it's no secret. This place has had decades of powerful lay ministry. You can just name them. Polly Randall, Briggsy Deming. I don't want to miss anybody, so that'd be terrible. But Phoebe Valentine. I mean, just down the list, right? I mean, it's a great history and legacy. And, you know, like so many things at St. Martin's, I just do my part to bring it forward, right? Which is really fun and exciting. So that's some strengths I want to reflect to you. And I could get boring on this because there's a lot of them. But I want to transition, if it's okay, to why you asked me to be here and what have the results been in the last 10 years. And I want to say as we start this, I signed a letter of agreement with y'all 10 years ago. That was for 10 years. And partially that was because I wanted us to recommit to each other at this point, right? I wanted us to stick a big toe in the water and say, is it still good? Because I'd never been at a place 10 years and I didn't like the idea of things going flat, of things getting stale for you or for me. And what's really fun for me right now, as I begin my 11th year today, is things feel fresh. Things feel like new beginnings. I am super charged up right now. And, you know, I thought with COVID, I might be wiped out or tired or bored or frustrated. Nope. I am feeling kind of a new birth of the Holy Spirit in me. I hope you're seeing it in me. But, part of it's bringing on new staff, right? We've welcomed Tyrone, and I see him. He's here today, right there. And that's great new energy and excitement right there. And he brings, hey, Tyrone. He brings a lot of great energy with him. We've just hired a new children and youth minister named Ann Alexis Hera, and she's going to bring new energy. I love working with Barb Ballinger as my associate rector. She is always a great partner in ministry. I love working with Natalie Hill, one of the longest employees we've had here, almost 10 years with me. She's really my most valuable player here during COVID. I think Barb Ballinger called her that. We've got a great staff. We've got a great vestry. We've got great lay leadership, great wardens, Barbara and Tom. So I'm ready to come out of this COVID pandemic with bells on, with energy flowing. Not overwhelming, but very much in the groove here at St. Martin's. So here's what I was brought on to do. I was brought on to do community engagement. And I think you can say we have, with the help of Kate Moss and a fantastic committee and Deacon Carroll, we have created kind of a new beginning in community engagement here. To be clear, a lot of what we've done has been based on prior work by Nikki Wood. Nikki Wood kind of left behind a template for me to follow. So I just followed what she said, basically. And I think it was natural to me in some ways from my background in community organizing and work in Trenton, New Jersey. But we've done what she laid out. We have focused in on core partnerships. We have clarified what our primary concerns are: hunger, addressed by supper; education, addressed by our partnership with Power and St. James School; and the climate change, addressed by our work with PAIPL, Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light, and our own climate action team. We have added in the 10 years racial justice to that list out of the development of our Becoming Beloved Community program. So we've moved from a granting organization to a relational partner with our community engagement partners, and that has changed us. That's the brilliance of this whole thing that Nikki laid out, is that once you go from being a grantor who hands out money and asks your grantees to tell you nice things about yourself as a giver, you enter a reciprocal mutual relationship that is going to change you, right? So if we're partners with Every Murder is Real in Germantown, Emir, they're going to talk back to us and tell us how we need to grow and change, right? And they have. And that's become part of our anti-racism learning. BBC partially grows out of the fact that if we're going to be serious about relationships across divisions of class and race, we have to be prepared to enter those relationships in a way that doesn't re-injure, that doesn't cause more pain. I used to think naively, and as a liberal, as I was raised, that, when we start working together, it's going to be kind of a kumbaya moment, right? That's not the case. That's actually the moment when white people like me make mistakes and make things worse. So we are just growing in such cool ways in these partnerships. So I want to thank you all for being willing to go on that community engagement journey that continues. Power has been a great partner in that. And it's one of those places where we meet a African-American led organization and we can't dictate things. So we need to learn to follow, right? When the next thing I want to bring up is stewardship. I was raised to work on our stewardship area. I was brought in to work on that. When I got here, pledging was $470,000 a year. Last year, it was $670,000. So I think that's progress. And I think we have, with a great stewardship committee, with the wonderful Al Good and the leadership of Ann Thatcher, that was part of that, and a lot of great lay leadership, we have helped, and now Natalie Hill's taking that on. We are now really a stewardship-minded parish, a very generous parish that is funding our mission and ministry with a real passion and belief. Now, I was also brought on to connect the church to the community, and that has happened in a brilliant lot of ways. We fundamentally changed how we do things. Is everything we do is for the community. We don't do ministry that's just for St. Martin's people. Everything we do is open to the community, and that fundamental decision changed everything. So Wellspring, it's an open door to the community. Supper, an open door to the community. Morning meditation, morning prayer, everything has a welcome mat in front of it. The choirs, everything has a welcome mat in front of it. And that has brought us a lot of new members. A lot of new folks have found a welcome here. People have returned to faith. People have returned to the church. People have been healed here. People have come through our door feeling really horrible about life and found their life renewed in this community. And that is something I always hang on to. I hang on to. Properties. Some things were not the focus when I got here, but became the focus. So I realized pretty soon after getting here that there was a major backlog of deferred maintenance at this place. Kind of a tradition of really not addressing the property. And well, we got on that. And thanks first to Bob Praviti and then David Harrower and now Carol Horn-Penn. We have one heck of a properties committee. In the sign of success there is, I used to spend like 30% of my time on properties. I think it's down to 10 or 20. That's because lay initiative is taken over. And that group understands the property, its needs, its demands, everything. And it's wonderful to have that guidance. Now, we have learned over these 10 years that we struggle, one of the struggles we have is funding our program while keeping care of our property. These two things are very hard to balance in our operational budget. How do we pay salaries and have a great choir and have all the programs we love and also keep our roofs from leaking? This is our constant dilemma. We are facing into it, which is great, but it probably means we need to do capital campaigns fairly regularly, right? Not once every 40 years, more like once every 10 years. We need to get some extra capital in here to keep these gorgeous buildings that our ministry relies on and make sure the buildings are not getting obstacles to our ministry, but part of our ministry. So BBC was a really fun and exciting outgrowth of community engagement and kind of an intention that was here when I got here. This parish, when I got here, had like 28 people who'd gone through anti-racism training, which was a lot in this diocese. Now that group was wondering what to do next, because you do the training, then you come back to your church, now what do you do? And they got together and they read books and they studied, they kept it alive. But the real question was what to do next. And then Barbara Ballinger came along. And we started to learn what to do next. And this has become a major strategic initiative of the church to do training in-house on anti-racism, to analyze everything we do through an anti-racism lens, to bring diversity to our staff and to the cultural presentation of this parish, and to develop an advocacy agenda around racial justice. What a ride that has been. I never saw that coming. I think it had to be the Holy Spirit because boy, was it timely, right? From Ferguson to George Floyd, we have needed this training to help us follow where God is leading. It hasn't always been easy. It hasn't always been welcome. It has created discomfort, but I think it's the right kind of discomfort. And I want to say a little more about that. This is, part of my commitment here is to be just boom, here I am. This is Jarrett talking to you. I think when I got here, there's a little bit of a culture of keeping things very comfortable so as not to ruffle any feathers. And oftentimes churches do that because they're afraid that fundraising will suffer if feathers are ruffled. If people get into tension, each other will spin into kind of destructive crisis. So that, that is a caring thought. That is a way to care for your community, is to avoid anything difficult. But it's also a way to stop spiritual growth. One of the things I'm most proud about is that we defined our BBC program from the beginning as spiritual growth, as living out our baptismal vows and growing into Christ. That means we've now, as a community, we have a different mix of comfort and discomfort, right? But here's the thing, is when we were keeping some people comfortable, other people were being kept uncomfortable. I hope you're following me. So if we were avoiding addressing race, our members who are directly impacted by racism and by white supremacy were suffering from that silence, because silence is violence. And their experience wasn't being reflected in this place. So now that we are being explicit about anti-racism and being forward about it, that's changing. So there's now discomfort among folks who didn't want to deal with that. And that discomfort has been in me sometimes, but I look at it as an invitation to learn and grow. And that's the invitation to everybody, is that feeling discomfort? Well, I need to probably learn and grow. And so I think we're rebalancing things here at St. Martin's. So if there is discomfort, maybe my people-pleasing impulse would be, I'm so sorry. But really maybe the pastoral impulse is, well, what is that discomfort teaching us? Is it drawing us deeper into discipleship, into the paschal ministry, into the life of the cross, right? So that's been a real growth for us. It's had consequences. There are costs associated, but any discipleship has costs. And I'm so proud of our leadership that we have over and over again chosen a path of faithfulness, even if it's not the wide, easy path. Wow, that's really rare, my friends, and thank you for sticking with me through it. So that is kind of a review of what you brought me here to do. So I'm looking at the next 5 to 10 years, and the vestry is looking at the next 5 to 10 years. You should know that Barbara Thompson is leading a review of me, my 10-year review, which is a big one. It's mandated by my letter of agreement as part of this whole reevaluation, if I'm the right guy for you and if you're the right place for me. I know you're the right place for me, so I'm just waiting to hear from you. So so I'm glad we're doing that evaluation. I want frank feedback. I do a lot better, I'll tell you this, when you guys tell me what you want from me, when the expectations are clear. I thrive in that environment. When they're foggy or there are too many of them, it kind of tears me apart. And St. Martin's kind of has a history of wanting a lot from its rectors. And that's fine, but I need it to be more specific. if the expectations are just all universally high, I'm going to get exhausted and not do so well for you guys. So tell me what you want from me and I will do it. Or we'll negotiate, right? That works. But one of the things I've really discovered at St. Martin's that I love is I love being a parish priest. I love it. I am meant to be a pastor of a community. I'm not trying to be a bishop. I'm not trying to work on a diocesan staff. I'm not trying to go to some big high steeple someplace. I love St. Martin's. You got to love who you're with, right? So I love you guys and what we can do here. And that's where my whole focus is. This job is not a stepping stone for me. I'm not like, well, I better do good at St. Martin's so I get another job. So I'm like, I need to do good at St. Martin's because God wants me here. And I still feel that. I still feel like God wants me here, which feels really good. So let's look ahead. Like I said earlier, I love my staff, and that's all of my staff. And, we have this very special person on my staff called Connie Haggard. Now, she works full-time for St. Martin's and doesn't get paid. So you guys need to think about that a little bit, right? St. Martin's without Connie Haggard, I'm not sure what that looks like. So she has been a gigantic blessing, my constant source of wisdom, somebody I can turn to for insight. And gosh, she knows more about this place than I do. So wow, working with Connie, we should all give her a little hand of applause here because she is amazing. And this is her third music director since I've been here. Way to go, Connie. And she's welcomed each one of them and been a big help. And I know she's loved. And you guys should all make sure she knows that. Someday we should do her anniversary. I think it's like, I don't even know, 40, 30, 40? It's a lot. So put it in the chat there, Connie, how long you've been here. It's been a long time and we need to do something for you. Thank you, by the way, for all of you who've sent gifts. Seems like bottles of booze are a theme. I don't know what you're telling me about myself, but I will raise a toast to you later. So as we look ahead, new beginnings with staff, so darn exciting. We're going to be focusing big time on supporting and encouraging and working with new staff to achieve what they were called to do. You know, Tyrone has got rebuilding to do with the treble choir program, which we're calling the choristers. So we're going to put a lot of energy and attention into that, right? We're going to build that up with Tyrone. We're going to support him in that work, right? We're not just going to throw him out there and say good luck. We're going to be behind his back there, right? Same with Ann Alexis Hera, right? She's got a lot of rebuilding to do coming out of COVID with children and youth. This has been an area that's been a bit of a challenge for the last 5 to 7 years as times have changed. I love this area. This is where I started in ministry, but it's different now than it even was when I started, right? When, you know, church attendance is a once a month thing, you need a lot more families with kids to make a sustainable program. Or you need fewer families with a higher commitment. Because if you have families once a month or twice a month, you need a bunch more kids to make it feel like a vibrant, active community. And you know me, I'm all about church growth. So I'm always ready to grow this place. You know, just say the word and I'll bring in new members. I love it. But we need to really do that in the children and youth area and really build up a new style of program. You know, it's no longer open the doors and the families come, right? And part of the reason I feel really driven in this area is our culture is not going to teach our kids who God is, right? So our kids are immersed most of the hours of the week in another culture, right? We might get them for an hour and a half, or 2 hours on Sunday, but that's all we have to immerse them in the culture of Christ. And they need that if they're going to have that love of God that grounds your life for the rest of your life, right? At least they know that they're loved here and they can always come back. They'll always be loved here and they know what God's love is, right? They need that. So I am super passionate about them knowing that here at St. Martin's, being honored in everything they do at St. Martin's. Speaking of staff, Daniel Cooper, homegrown. We have a teenager running our audio-visual ministry, and he's doing a fabulous job because we saw this gift he had to give, and we brought it in, right? We have fabulous youth Ann Harrower on the vestry. Isn't she fantastic? And we saw the gift, we brought it in. See, I grew up in a church where the gifts of the children and youth weren't noticed. The adults were self-involved. And I was the chaplain of my Boy Scout troop when I was 11. I preached my first sermon when I was 12. Why didn't anybody notice that there was a call to the ministry here? I was told by my junior high teacher not to do a book report on the priesthood. Who didn't see the ministry here, right? So one of my things is we notice our youth and our children. We see their gifts, we call them out, we delight in those kids, because if they're not having that experience here, we are not doing God's work. We're doing God's work when we delight in the kids, rejoice in their gifts, find ways for them to get connected in music or video or whatever, Willie Praviti has done really awesome work with us on filming Easter Vigil last year. He's got that gift. He's a fantastic film editor. Find it out, work with it, right? It's so that excites me, and that's what we're going to do. Sorry. We're going to keep doing our BBC work. That's going to keep going. We're going to take it to the next level of partnering with other churches, possibly Christ Church St. Michael's, St. Luke's, African Episcopal Church of St. Thomas. Where are we called to be together in ministry? Not as charitable givers, but as fellow partners in the pew, studying the Bible together, praying together, worshiping together, being influenced by them as much as we influence them, right? Being very aware of the power dynamics, but how do we do that deep relational work that really changes the culture of the church that's been divided up by racism for a long time? Tune in on Absalom Jones Sunday for more about that. I already mentioned children and youth. I'm so high about it, but let's remember our baptismal covenant, right? Every time we baptize a child, we say that we are committing to them and their growth in their life in Christ. So we promised, so we got to follow through. I referred to properties earlier, and this balance of operating budget and capital funds. We have this fantastic leader in Carol Horn-Penn and her committee. We got to raise some capital funds for the parish hall. That's coming up. Strap in. It's coming. It could be $1 million. It could be $3 million. We'll figure out how much we can raise. Whatever we raise, we're going to use it to make sure these buildings are here for the next generation of ministry, right? Hope we're bringing supper back. We got to support that with the kitchen work and the parish hall. But Deborah always reminds me, it's not just supper. Hospitality is the core of our ministry, right? Welcoming people, feeding people. If we're going to get into welcoming people back into faith, we need to feed them every way we can. Harry Gould said something really cool the other day in a meeting. He said, we got to learn as a parish how to share our spiritual food. How to share our spiritual food. Now, I know if you're on this Zoom, you understand what spiritual food means. You've received it from Christ. Now we have to get over that Episcopal shyness of talking about it, right? What is that Episcopal repressed thing where we just kind of stop with people when it comes to a time to say, well, this is what my faith means to me. This is who Jesus is for me. This is what I have received from following Christ. Suddenly we clam up, right? We come to church every Sunday, but we can't like share with the next person, well, I am spiritually fed because, or I am spiritually fed how. This is a big growing edge for us that I'm super excited about. I'll be straight up with you guys. I may be socially progressive, but I think you've probably noticed that I'm a little theologically conservative, right? I'm a Trinitarian Christian who follows Jesus, loves the Bible. I'm pretty straightforward, your basic Christian, right? So that's just who I am. And I've been growing in my ability to, God forbid I use this word, evangelize. We got to win that word back from the other side, my friends. The reason that side gets all the press is they're out there, right? So my friends, we need to, maybe small e, I would call myself a progressive evangelical, if you really asked me. We got to learn to share this faith. The Episcopal Church doesn't know how to do that because we were an establishment church for way too long. We just thought that reproduction and reputation would restock the pews. We thought that reproduction and reputation would restock the pews. Well, guess what? Our demographic is not having so many babies anymore. And our reputation doesn't matter so much anymore. So we can't do it based on reputation or reproduction. We got to do it by making disciples and helping people come to faith. And that's such good news because you want a church that's all about faith sharing and built on gospel-centered presence, right? We don't want to be here because of social status or club membership or whatever. We want to be here because we are gospel-centered, right? I'm really psyched about that, right? And let's work on it. So if we rehab the kitchen and rehab the parish hall, let's do welcome to faith courses that involve a meal. It's always easier to have a meal and talk than to make people rush home from work and try to get over here in a rush. You just have a meal and talk, right? I think Jesus did that, didn't he? Didn't Jesus have meals and talk to people? Kind of basic, right? Kind of core to who we are, right? I'm also really excited that thanks to Rick Josiason, this is a gift Rick Josiason has given us. We now have relationships. Ooh, I've been talking for a long time. I'm sorry. I've had a lot to say. Sorry, I've been pent up here. We've been developing this alternative music angle, right? You may have seen the, Aaron Graves, Valerie Gay, Denise King. Because of Rick Josiason's relationships, we're now discovered that African-American musicians are at home here in a new way to share what they do. And so maybe in the future, we'll have a new evening service, not on Evensong Sunday, because that's Evensong. We love Evensong, just like it is. But another 5 p.m. service that's maybe the music of Aaron Graves, right? That would be really fun to do. And it'd be helpful to people because not everybody can make it on Sunday morning because of sports or whatever. So we're looking at other ways to help people worship with us. Because worship is one of the things we do best, my friends. It's one of the things we do best. So I think I've covered my notes here. Whew. Deep breath. Oh my gosh, that was a lot. Sorry about that. That's a lot of me talking. So I think, thank you for listening. I think we would go to questions and answers. I think the chat box is the best way. There's 67 plus people and there's 70 plus people on this call. So if we go to open questions, it'll be chaotic. So if you'd like to type a question for me to respond to in the chat box, I am happy to do that. Catherine Neufeld, I'm interested in learning more about St. James School. Well, let me introduce you to Laura Simpson, who's on this call. Laura, could you chime in the chat there and meet Catherine Neufeld? St. James School is a wonderful partner we've had for a number of years now, and that's fun, right? And we have a lot of volunteers down there now, especially on Saturdays with the Welcome Table program. So Justina Barrett asks, what are Anne's first tasks? So Anne Alexis Harris' first tasks, like everything, it's relational. She's gonna be reaching out to families and getting to know you. She's gonna be taking a handoff from Barb Ballinger, who so faithfully has carried that torch. And they're gonna be working together because Barb is going to be her supervisor. Now, we're still in COVID, so Anne's got the creative task of figuring out how to do things. One of the things she's going to do is especially focus in on junior high. I've got high school, and I think that's going reasonably well. Anne's going to take on junior high, which she's gifted at. And if you've got somebody who's gifted with junior high, you go for it. So that's great. That'll be on Zoom probably. And so she'll do the relational work, and then Tyrone, Barb, Anne, and myself are going to work on what's the vision for next year. And we're going to involve lots of parents in that vision making. We've got some very creative ideas that Barb Ballinger has hatched for how we restart it all in the fall. So look for more on that forthcoming. Ooh, lots of questions. Carol Duncan, when you say power, how do we get more people into power strategy groups? Well, that's a great question, Carol. We have 4 people in the Live Free group already, which is amazing. We've got Carol in economic dignity, and I'm going to be moseying over to the education group. Carol has helped develop a really vibrant or vital local organizing committee, which is great. And so I think we need to just invite people to follow your passions into power. If you care about education, if you care about mass incarceration, if you care about the climate, we got a seat for you at the table. Victoria 6 says, Jarrett, don't apologize. Well, thank you, Victoria. These were my growing edges. As a middle child people pleaser, I apologize too much. Tyrone likes to say it's because he's British. He apologizes too much, but I'll let Tyrone talk about that. You are entitled to do this every so often. Thank you for your past leadership and for the leadership to come. Thanks. Yeah. Barbara Thompson, if anyone would like to weigh in on the 10-year evaluation, please feel free to contact me via email, Barbara Thompson 16@gmail.com or 917-687-5298, or with a note in my mailbox at church. My info is also in the directory. Looking forward to hearing from you. Lucretia Robbins, no need to apologize. I'm getting a lot of advice not to apologize. We are here to listen to you. Well, that feels good. Pam and Michael Prell, I just want to say that it's great. It's a great gift to have a rector who was willing to step into his own gifts relating to teens. I think it's been a key in helping teenagers feel like they're a vital part of the parish. Thank you, Jarrett. Well, thank you, Pam and Michael. Barbara Dundon, I want to be an evangelist. Oh, good for you. I think you're well equipped, Barbara Dundon. And I'd like to find a way to tie my gospel love to BBC and community engagement. I think I'll need help. Well, I'm glad to help. And you are always a huge help. And I think that's also key. I want to say that a great thing about St. Martin's is our BBC work, our community engagement work, all that stuff is gospel rooted. We're not doing it out of our like personal politics. We're doing it because Jesus calls us to do it. And I love making that connection really explicit, right? I always say, let's give our church reasons for doing something, right? We did voter engagement this year, big time, not because it was a good idea, because we're called to do it. So always name your church reasons, always name your discipleship reasons for doing things. I think St. Martin's will always be a great place for coming to faith because we're really welcoming and there's lots of latitude, right? Show up wherever you're at, soak in that liturgy, soak in that music, soak in the gospel. We're not going to modify the gospel necessarily to make you feel more at home, but we're going to preach the gospel and still love you as you get used to it, right? And then if you want to go the next step, we're here for you. If not, that's fine too. We're here for you to walk you into that deeper relationship. Those of us who feel comfortable with those gifts to do that. You know, St. Paul talks about the body of Christ all the time. What is it about the body of Christ? Lots of gifts. Not everybody has to have the same gift, right? Some people are really comfortable over there with Altar Guild. And I want to say a big shout out to our Altar Guild. We have one of the best. And I'm going to lay that at the feet of Mary Baumberger. What a great Altar Guild we have. You know, they're not up front, not showy, not something you see all the time, but woo! Right up with our Altar Guild, Flower Guild, which also is remarkable. Thank you, Jane Good and your folks. Very exciting. Oh, something else I wanted to lift up with Becoming Beloved Community. Here's something you learn when you take on like a real morally intensive task is you become accountable. So the second we started saying Becoming Beloved Community, people would put our feet to the fire when St. Martin's wasn't a loving community. And Barbara and I are really clear that that's good. We are accountable to being a beloved community. So we're used to you holding us accountable. So do it. It's not always comfortable for me, but do it. You know, once you put yourself out there for something, we get held accountable. So Jim Fairburn says, Becoming Beloved Community, think it was decided to say what it is, not to confuse people with a British TV network. Right. Becoming Beloved Community is BBC. Oh, James Kent. Yes, we got to give James Kent a shout out. Oh my God. I really think James Kent is the best person at St. Martin's. No offense to anybody else, but I would like to be James Kent when I grow up. He is the dearest, the most loving, fabulous person. Wow, he's like the soul of the place for me, and I just adore him. And make sure you tell him how much you care for him too. You know, and one of the things when people maybe say, why do we have the Black Lives Matter sign in the yard? I say, well, partially for our employees, my friend. James I noticed a while back, he'd come to work in a Black Lives Matter t-shirt and he would take it off. And I had to tell him to leave it on, that he was completely entitled to say that. And I love that he wears his Black Lives Matter t-shirts now. And he's such a good partner in ministry. Just this morning, he worked with me with a homeless guy who's been sleeping on campus. John is this homeless guy who's been sleeping in the steps by the Undercroft, and which is not good. Not happy about it, but you can't control people. It was 21 degrees last night, right? So we always welcome him into the church, give him coffee, give him some food, get him warmed up. And we were able to get him to a better shelter, which was good. But James was a huge part of that. We got him to go to the Holy Trinity shelter on Rittenhouse Square. So that's fantastic. Lots of stuff in there about, about James Kent. Good. Yep. I should have invited him to be on here. I know a lot of you would like to see him and give him your love personally. Other things, my friends? Any other questions, concerns, thoughts? We've been at this an hour, which is a lot in Zoom time. Keep it up. Thank you, Susan. That's nice. That feels good to hear. I really do feel like we're on a pretty clear direction. And I'm all about sticking with it. Deborah Roberts asks, you've mentioned a strategic plan in the update. Well, the vestry had a great retreat back in September, and Barbara Thompson has convened a strategic plan committee, and we're working on it. We had our first meeting Thursday, and I think we're going to make a good, focused strategic plan with not too much in it. 5 focal areas that we want to work on. How we address budget to the strategic plan, how we address staffing to it, how we address volunteering to it. One of the principles in it, we don't do stuff when we don't have lay leadership to do it, right? If we don't have lay leadership, we have to staff for it. So that's going to be kind of exciting. I'm really excited. Oh, Pam Hill, you're so awesome. My beloved former rector's warden, we were so right to call you. Oh, that's nice to hear. And Lucretia Robbins is thanking me for morning meditation. That group's been going on for 9 years now. 9 years of every morning meditation. And it's kind of a wonderful thing. 8:15 in the church, it's been anything but from 2 of us to 9 of us. So it's been great. Got to root this thing in prayer, my friends. It's all rooted in prayer. Like morning prayer. Can you believe morning prayer in this community? We've got some mornings we have 20 people doing morning prayer on Zoom and Facebook Live. That's nuts. I don't know if any church has that, but that says something. Barbara Thompson's giving thanks for morning prayer. Thank you, Barbara. Christopher Widener, as a retired Lutheran pastor, I'm grateful for St. Martin's hospitality and for your earnest collegiality. Oh, thanks you, Christopher. You've been a great addition to the church. We have a really amazing number of former clergy in our pews, which is fantastic and allows us to do a lot of cool stuff with their gifts too. It's a little intimidating for me, I got to confess. You look at it like biblical scholars and great pastors, you're like, Bill Bixby, hey Bill. Oh geez, this is starting to pick up, yikes. Sandy and I have returned from Chicago this year to home in multiple senses, are grateful for St. Martin's and for the substantive, free-flowing, progressively evangelical conversation. Chris Widener is a buddy of Bill Bixby. Former clergy, oh my, says Bill Bixby. And Bill Bixby is former clergy, or he is clergy, he's just retired. Rebecca Ruman Moore, or Andrew, can't tell. In the spirit of Barbara Dundon's response, I appreciate the chance to reflect on how I, and perhaps each of us, might renew our commitment or take it in a new direction, even as you describe renewing your contract at the 10-year point. Oh, thanks, Andrew. That's awesome. We recommit to our baptismal vows constantly, right? So it's never too late. Catherine Neufeld, thanks to John Haugen. Now we're getting, see, you guys work together. It's not about me. It's awesome. Rick Josiason, you've mentioned several times that social justice has not been without costs. Can you share a little with what you mean? Well, we had a few pledges go down this year. Not much, many more went up, by a factor of 50 more went up than went down, but some went down, some significant ones went down because, we took our Black Lives Matter seriously. We took our racial justice thing seriously, and not everybody agrees with that. Some people want to say all lives matter, and I've had some great conversations, though, with people who disagree with me on these things, and I'm proud of that. So the thing I'm proud of is I've I think I've kept relationship alive across those disagreements, but sometimes it costs us some income. But we're fine. We're just fine. Sometimes it causes some rumbling, right, in the neighborhood or something. And, our stand on the cricket club sign wasn't universally popular, but I'm proud we did it. And the sign is now down, by the way. So, there's always going to be some tension, some rumbling, some discussion. I just think we continue to be a place where those discussions happen and that has the maturity to have quality discussions on the matter, right? And that's a gift of this place, as we've learned with some great instruction from a lot of sources like Bill Jacobson and Chris Satullo and others to have these conversations. Oh yeah, and, thanks for that heads up there and reminder, Judy. Kathy Glazer has connected St. Martin's to host for hospitals, a wonderful community outreach. We have told the congregation about that, but we've had a family in there for, gee whiz, gosh, 5 months now, 4 months. A wonderful young family who has twins at CHOP, and we've been hosting them. It's been great, and they've also created a beautiful apartment up there. Barbara Dundon is grateful for my role as teacher. Oh, I have loved your presentations at Parish Forum. Well, that's nice to hear. Joanne Conway, I appreciate your choosing Barb Ballinger and Carol Duncan to be part of your staff. Well, I'm pretty happy about that too. Yeah, we've got a great staff. I think we work together as a team. We've just added Arlene to our staff. I hope you'll get to know her in the office. Another great addition to the staff. We're a good team here at St. Martin's. And I like the appreciation. I think moving forward on the basis of appreciation is really important. I think we always have to do more appreciating each other in this parish than criticizing. Like I say in premarital counseling, 10 positives for 1 negative, right? So build each other up, and that allows agitation to happen later. Gary Glazer, Judy Haleski has transformed the landscape with lots of gorgeous new shrubs. Yes, she has. We have an amazing landscaper in residence, and it's showing. And great work on the columbarium. See, this is the danger at St. Martin's. If I start saying names, it goes on forever, right? There's just too many gifts, right? I could name every person in the choir while we're at it, if you'd like. Or all the acolytes. It's just too much. It's like drinking out of the proverbial hose here. So lots of gifts, great future ahead of us. I think we are being really clear about who we are, which is a huge help to people looking for a church. One of the greatest compliments I've gotten, I'm going to lay this at the feet of Natalie Hill. I don't know if she's on here. I hope she is that when people go to our website these days, they say, oh, I know who this church is. And we got that from a lot of our music director candidates, our director of music candidates. They would say, oh, I want to work for that church because I know what they're about. Well, that's good. I think Tyrone can give me an amen on that. Yep. And, Anne Alexis Hara told me that from looking at our website. So people are applying for jobs here and coming here because of our website. We have some new members who are transgendered, and by looking at our website, they know they'll be welcomed here, and that feels really good. And that reminds me, that's something I really want to kind of put out there. Because we have become clear about being a parish that's welcoming and affirming and celebrating of LGBTQIA people, that's something we got to be really clear about when we welcome people, is that kind of conversation is over here. We're not going to raise it again like there's another side to the story, right? You can come here and join a welcoming community, but you can't make anybody feel unwelcomed, right? So if you have an issue on LGBTQI stuff, talk to me, talk to Barb, but we're not going to have some big parish forum and talk about whether it's okay to be transgender or something. That's just mean. That's just unwelcoming and nasty because you're treating somebody like the reality is up for grabs. Not cool. Same thing with race. We're not going to pretend that racism isn't real here anymore. We're not. If you want us to be a place where racism isn't talked about, too late. The ship has sailed. We're going to talk about it as part of all kinds of stuff. And once again, glad to talk to you about it one-to-one, but we're not going to have some big parish forum about whether racism is real or not, because it's real. We accept it. We're working against it. Kathy Greeley, I've never been part of a congregation that so wholeheartedly put welcome and community into practice. Thank you for your leadership. Well, that feels great. When I got here 10 years ago, we added welcome to the mission statement. It wasn't there. So we said, welcome all seekers in the mission statement. Susan McBride, are other parishes in the diocese moving in similar directions? Good question. Well, you know what? Some are. And, our own Barb Ballinger is their consultant. She's working with parishes on becoming beloved community, anti-racism stuff. She's a key figure in anti-racism for the diocese in general. Yeah, so we're in, St. Martin's has a long history of being a diocesan leader in things. Back in the 70s, it led on the new prayer book. In the 80s and 90s, it led in church and reconfiguring the inside of your church. Now we're doing anti-racism and social justice, and we are a leader on that in the diocese, which is exciting and fun. From Pam and Michael Prell, Jarrett, you brought clarity and leadership to that conversation 10 years ago. Oh, thank you. That feels good. Tyrone, hey Tyrone. I can't tell you how exciting a community St. Martin's is. The traditions and history twinned with progressive outlooks and willingness to realize potential. Welcoming all, definitely the biggest draw to St. Martin's is people. Thanks, Tyrone. Oh, good. And then an affirmation right under that. And and Tyrone says, I also see this as a member of the LGBTQ plus and BIPOC community. Cheers on that. It's very important that we welcome Tyrone and his husband, Sean, right? And remember back in the days when that would be pretend, when the church would play pretend about that? Not cool. Oh yeah, and thanks Joe Minical for that reminder. We are doing with the deanery, and that's our collection of local Episcopal churches, Manayunk, Roxborough, Chestnut Hill, Mount Airy, East Falls, Allegheny West, all the way down to 18th and Diamond. We're going to be doing the Sacred Ground curriculum, which is a national church anti-racism curriculum on Monday nights. Barb Ballinger took the lead on that, and it's going to be really cool. I'll be in it as a facilitator. Great chance to really actually work across racial lines on racial justice. So that's a fun opportunity we got coming. And Sacred Ground has a root at St. Martin's because it was put together by the granddaughter of a former rector. So, from World War II to the end of the 60s, we had a rector, and I'm vamping now because his name flew out of my head. Susan McBride, want to help me out? Phil Sturgis. So Phil Sturgis's granddaughter put together Sacred Ground, which is amazing. Isn't that cool? Nice connection. Other connections, other questions, other things that need to be said? Well, boy, you've spent an hour and a quarter with me this morning. Martha Kroll says, here's the next 10 years. And Martha Kroll's kind of staff too. She's doing the music for family worship, which is amazing. And we got to thank those speakers again. Let's thank those speakers again this morning. I was so grateful for that. It's kind of hard to sit there and get talked about. But thank you, Barbara Thompson, for everything you did to put that together, and Barbara Ballinger. Let's see if I can remember all of them. Alan Wendell, thank you. Barbara Thompson, thank you. Nikki Wood, thank you. Barbara Dundon, thank you. Gary Glazer, thank you. And I'm missing one from 8 o'clock. Pam Hill, thank you. How could I forget Pam Hill? That is terrible. And then we're keeping in, thank you. Martha Rittman says, thank you for keeping in touch with Cathedral Village. Well, that's easy. And I love Cathedral Village, and we are glad to be in touch. And Bill Jacobson says, in a world that puts people away who violate the law, St. Martin's and you, Jarrett, have opened your hearts to humans in prisons. And that's a great ministry that's perking in there. And I think that goes back to Mary Hopkins, and Doc Hopkins did some of that work here back in the day. And maybe it took a little siesta, but now it's coming back with Ann Sawyer and Bill Jacobson. we're getting back into prison ministry, which is good because Jesus said to visit those in prison, right? If you visit those in prison, you visit him. So anything else? Thank you all for the reminders. This is a lot to keep going. Jim Fairburn puts in the box, the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about, says Oscar Wilde. So I think it's a comment on the LGBTQI thing. I'm getting some private advice here, which I think I'll look at, about some prison devotionals. Thank you, Christopher. Anything else before we say good day and start shoveling snow? I'm going to go skiing. I don't know about you guys. Well, thank you all. May God's blessing be upon you. May your life be enriched and full of love. And may Christ grow you from day to day into all God's blessings. I love you all so much. And I can't wait till we're in person again. Oh, I should say something. COVID. Didn't talk enough about COVID. So I'm thinking if the trends continue with, the of the curve, and remember, we set out to flatten that curve. And thank you to Allison Ballantyne for being our great teacher on that. We might be able to get back to some limited in-person worship coming up if the curve keeps going down and if vaccines keep going out. So my big hope, and this is not a promise, this is a hope, is some in-person limited worship at the beginning of Lent. So it'll be around February 20th. So we don't know yet, but we're hoping to get back to that with the signups and the masks and the distancing, all that good stuff. We got to be vigilant, but I'm hoping some limited in-person might be coming back. Pam and Michael Prell say, just wonderful to see so many dear faces. And I can second that. It's so great to see your faces. I have missed you and I can't wait to be back in person with you all. So thanks for putting up with me. Thanks for letting me be a place where I can be the priest I am. Thanks for challenging me. Thanks for putting me back in my place when I get out of it. And thanks for letting my gifts flourish. I'm really grateful. Cheers, guys.